Aksum, the African kingdom that coined money before Rome did. What if an African empire was minting gold coins while Rome was still trading in bronze? Not a myth, not speculation. A kingdom called Aksum did exactly that, and for centuries the world depended on it. The Aksumite Empire rose around 100 BCE in what is now northern Ethiopia and Eritrea. At its height, it wasn't a regional curiosity. It was a continental superpower sitting at one of the most strategically valuable crossroads on Earth. The Persian prophet Mani, writing in the 3rd century CE, listed Aksum alongside Rome, Persia, and China as one of the 4 greatest powers of his age. That's not African exceptionalism. That's a contemporary foreign assessment. Geography gave Aksum its first advantage. The empire's coastline on the Red Sea placed it directly between the Mediterranean world and the Indian Ocean. Every ship moving goods between Rome and India passed through waters Aksum could tax, patrol, and dominate. Through the port of Audalis, Aksum's commercial gateway, ivory, frankincense, tortoise's shell, and live animals moved westward toward Roman markets. Indian textiles, spices, and metalwork flowed back. Aksum didn't just facilitate this trade, it controlled it. Here's where Aksum separated itself from every other African polity of its era. It minted its own coinage, gold, silver, and bronze, with legends written in both Ge'ez and Greek. This was sophisticated monetary policy, not primitive barter. Striking coins in both Ge'ez, the empire's own script, and Greek, the language of Mediterranean commerce, was a deliberate diplomatic signal. It told Roman merchants, "We are your equals." It told local subjects, "This empire has its own identity." Aksum didn't stay on the African side of the Red Sea. Aksumite armies crossed the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and established control over parts of the Arabian Peninsula, what is now Yemen. A projection of military power across open water in the ancient world. Controlling both sides of the Bab el-Mandeb meant Aksum could set the terms of the entire Red Sea corridor. No competing power could bypass it. This made the empire not just a trade partner for Rome. It made Aksum a strategic necessity. In the 4th century CE, the Aksumite Empire adopted Christianity as its state religion under King Izana, around 330 CE. Rome's Edict of Milan in 313 CE had made Christianity legally tolerated across Roman territory. But tolerating a religion and enshrining it as a state religion are 2 different acts. Aksum made Christianity its official faith at the moment Rome was still deciding what to do with it. That conversion wasn't superficial. It embedded Christianity so deeply into the region's culture that the Ethiopian Orthodox Church today, with approximately 36 million members, traces its lineage directly to the Aksumite conversion. A 4th century political decision still sustains one of the world's largest ancient Christian communities. Here's something almost no one knows, and it completely reframes Aksum's relationship with Islam. When the Prophet Muhammad's early followers were being persecuted in Mecca around 615 CE, they didn't flee to Rome or Persia. They fled to Aksum. The Aksumite ruler, known in Islamic tradition as the Negus, granted those refugees protection. A Christian king sheltering the earliest Muslims. That act is recorded in Islamic historical sources and stands as one of history's most overlooked moments of interfaith refuge. By the mid-7th century CE, the Islamic conquests had transformed the political map of the known world with extraordinary speed. Egypt fell in 642 CE. Persia was absorbed. The entire eastern Mediterranean shifted under new authority. Those changes would prove fatal for Aksum. Here's the specific mechanism of Aksum's decline. As Islamic powers consolidated control across Arabia and Persia, the great Indo-Roman trade routes shifted. Merchants no longer needed to cross the Red Sea through Aksumite waters. The Persian Gulf became the new highway. Aksum's entire economic model rested on being the indispensable middleman. When the trade moved to the Persian Gulf, ships stopped calling at Adulis. Customs revenue dried up. The gold that had funded armies, monuments, and coinage stopped flowing in. But blaming only the Islamic conquests for Aksum's fall is too simple, and that simplification matters. The empire also faced mounting internal pressures: soil exhaustion from centuries of intensive agriculture, deforestation of the highlands, and political fragmentation among regional rulers. These internal stresses didn't cause the collapse alone, but they made Aksum brittle. When the external shock of lost trade arrived in the 7th century, the empire had no economic buffer to absorb it. Multiple systems failed at once, the same compounding pattern that brought down the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE, where military overextension, fiscal collapse, and political fragmentation converged simultaneously rather than sequentially. Between the 7th and 10th centuries, Aksum didn't vanish overnight. It contracted. The political center retreated from the coast into the Ethiopian highlands. The great port of Adulis was abandoned. The monumental Stele building stopped. The gold coinage ceased. The physical evidence of Aksum's scale didn't disappear. The towering stone stelae, some exceeding 24 meters, still stand in northern Ethiopia. The architectural grammar of those monuments, the carved false windows, the layered stone courses, directly shaped Ethiopian building traditions for centuries after. Those gold coins from the opening aren't just striking artifacts. They're evidence of a functioning monetary economy, a state capable of standardizing value, projecting authority through currency, and integrating itself into international financial networks simultaneously. Here's the harder question Aksum forces us to ask. Can any empire that builds its power entirely on controlling a single trade corridor survive when that corridor moves? Across history, the answer appears to be no. Aksum isn't unique in this. It's exemplary. Venice lost power when Atlantic trade routes bypassed the Mediterranean after 1492. The Silk Road cities of Central Asia emptied when sea routes to Asia opened. Aksum's story fits a recognizable pattern. Geographic advantage is an asset until geography changes or until someone builds around you. Aksum's 4th century conversion to Christianity created something that outlasted the empire itself. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, one of the world's oldest continuously functioning Christian institutions, is a direct institutional descendant. The empire died. The institution survived. Return to that extraordinary moment, a Christian African king sheltering the earliest Muslims from persecution. That relationship, Aksum as protector of nascent Islam, meant early Islamic tradition held Aksum in high regard. It likely delayed hostile pressure on the empire for decades. By approximately 940 CE, the Aksumite state as a coherent political entity had ceased to exist. The final blow came not from Islamic armies, but from internal revolt. The political structures collapsed inward. What followed was fragmentation into smaller highland kingdoms. Modern excavations at Aksum have substantially revised our understanding of how sophisticated this empire was. The British Institute in Eastern Africa conducted systematic excavations at the port of Adulis in the early 2000s, recovering coin hoards, imported ceramics, and warehouse foundations that confirmed Attalus as a major international entrepot, not a minor regional port. Each new excavation season at sites like the Dungor Palace complex adds structural evidence that the historical record, dominated by Roman and Greek sources, consistently underestimated Aksum's scale. The claim that Aksum was a minor player in world history is wrong, and the error has a traceable source. Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, in his 1837 Lectures on the Philosophy of History, explicitly argued that Africa south of the Sahara had no history worth studying and stood outside the movement of world spirit. That framework shaped European historiography for over a century and systematically excluded African polities from the category of great civilizations. Miney's 3rd century list didn't make that mistake. Guz, the script on Aksumite coins and royal inscriptions, didn't die with the empire. Its origins trace back to roughly the 5th century BCE, making it approximately 2,500 years old. It remains the liturgical language of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church today, used in religious ceremonies across Ethiopia and Eritrea. A writing system that predates the Roman Empire is still in living use. Aksum's rise and fall encodes a lesson that reaches well beyond ancient history. Geographic advantage, controlling a strait, a port, a corridor, is enormously powerful until the world routes around it. The empires that survive are those that build something internal that geography cannot reroute. Here's a detail that rarely makes it into the history books. Aksumite coins have been recovered at archaeological sites in India. Physical proof that Aksumite currency circulated in South Asian markets. This wasn't a local African currency. It was an internationally accepted medium of exchange, trusted from the Mediterranean to the subcontinent. The next time you read that coinage as a global financial instrument began in Europe, remember that an African kingdom's gold was already clearing transactions in Indian ports centuries earlier. That gold coin from the opening is still doing work. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, Aksum's institutional heir, operates across 4 continents with tens of millions of members. The port of Djibouti, built on the same Red Sea choke point Aksum once controlled, remains one of the busiest shipping corridors on Earth. And Ge'ez, the script on those coins, is still spoken in liturgy every week. Aksum's political state is gone. Its geography, its faith, and its writing system never stopped functioning. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more.